All right. So Mehrbod John, thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it, my man. It's been how many years have we known each other? It's got to be close to 20, if not more, I would say.
Yeah, it's been a long time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, since my Palos Verdes days. So
Wait, wait,
it's like the 94, 95, 96, a long time ago now.
25 years, man. Wow.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
used
remember.
to play basketball with your dad and your brother.
Those are the
Those
good
are the
old
fun
days.
days, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at
man.
Penn
Those are
High.
yeah, that
Fun
was those
times.
were the days. Yeah. You were the how much younger are you than your bro?
6 years, 5.5
Yeah.
years.
So you were
Yeah.
like a baby. You remember coming around that time. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
crazy.
Those were
Yeah,
fun
yeah,
times. Yeah,
yeah.
man.
Your dad was a baller.
Yeah, with his little bank shot. Yeah. He would always call
He was
bonk.
really good. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Awesome times, man. Well, for those of you who may not be familiar with Mehrbod, Mehrbod has been a dear friend. He's my favorite DJ of all time. He's amazing music. I've seen you live. I listen to all your hyper tracks, but I don't want to
Thanks,
focus
man.
on that. I want to really talk about the entrepreneurial side of you, and the whole reason for this podcast really to kind of shed some light on being an entrepreneur and what goes along with that. So, if you don't mind, just share with the audience who may not be familiar with your story, kind of, what led to DJing, and then before you started your company, if you can kind of go through that timeline.
Man, so obviously I started DJing as a kid, so and just the love for music and and my dad used to play music in our household and and so I kind of got used to playing really loud music in my house and then I would play music for family parties, just for fun. And then
Yeah.
eventually some of my mom's friends started asking me, hey, you want to come and play at our events? And I used to actually not have like a turntable or anything like that. I would have two separate systems that I
Oh,
would
that's
do, and I'll turn the volume up on one and turn the other one. So I'll get the tape deck and listen to it on this one. And then so I was kind of improvising. And then one day my dad took me to Radio Shack. I'm guessing a lot of people don't know what Radio Shack is at this point, but it took me to Radio Shack and I got a mixer and then that's all she wrote. Then I got turntables, and then I started playing in different types of events in high school, and then eventually that's kind of the way it ended up paying for me for probably 10 years of my life for everything I did, and started doing weddings and birthday parties. And as I kind of got to know that world a little bit and DJing in those things, it led me to be2.com with my friend Amir at the time. And one thing we were lacking was putting mixes out. So then I got into using Logic and Ableton, and then I started producing music, learning how to remix music, produce music, put out mixes, and that led me into the world of of production and
Mhm.
DJing, which eventually got me into. I was signed by Universal Music and started doing that and doing full on productions for different artists, doing a lot of ghostwriting and stuff like that. And then that's kind of like how that whole thing went, and got to travel and that's one of my biggest dreams. So
Nice.
I really I really enjoyed that. So yeah,
Do you
so
still
that's how that.
do you still DJ? I know you make music. You put out those hyper tracks, but do you still DJ at all?
um I don't DJ as much anymore. I think I stopped DJing right around when COVID hit.
Hmm.
um Especially with the kids and the wife being pregnant with our first and then the second kid, so we kind of and there was obviously they shut everything down. So after that, I haven't really gone back to DJing, but I still produce for fun. I still put some tracks here and there out just for fun of it, and same thing with the mixes. But it kind of there was a shift at I think a point in my life where as a DJ, you're essentially when you make your money is the weekends. So you're DJing, Friday, Saturday nights, Sundays, sometimes during the day, uh, Thursday nights, and it's long hours. It's nightly stuff. You're up till late. So, um, I think there was a point in my life where I'm like, dude, I'm getting married. I want to have kids and stuff like that. I can't miss the weekends, and I want to be able to be with the kids and stuff like that. So I think the transition happened for me around 2000, 14, 15 was when I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, you know what? I got to focus on generating revenue for myself through other avenues. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how it led me to starting my own business, started working for a different business as well, doing sales and stuff like that, and kind of learned the background of how it worked. The best thing I did is I remember when I came back from Arizona, I'm like, man, I gotta start doing something else. And I was always good at, I was a people's person. I was
Mm-hmm.
always able to sell. And so I found an entrepreneur in Irvine, same as Alex DeSmalchi, and I was always very fond of him and how he
Mm-hmm.
did business. And I was really good friends with his brother. And so I went to him. I said, "Hey, I want to come learn from you." And one thing I learned, I went to a Tony Robbins conference, I think back in 2014, and one thing he did is that was very impressive was he said, if you want to learn something, go to the best person that does it. So if you want to be, let's say, a producer, you want to go to the best producer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And learn from the best producer. So that's kind of essentially. I'm like, okay. I went to Alex and I said, hey, let me come work for you. I want to learn from you and all that stuff. So that's how that started. And I went over there, and there's all these other avenues of learning how to sell. And we started importing products, selling things on different flash sites, and that's how I kind of got introduced to supplements.
Mm.
So we started bringing different things in. Yeah.
No, so what was Alex's business also supplements, or was it completely separate?
No, no. Alex's business was everything, man. He would import we would import toothbrushes, facial brushes, and stuff like that, and then he would make it his brand, and then he would
Mm.
he would sell it on flash sites. So I was, my job was to not only help with what would be good ideas of things to bring, but also he had an amazing group of people that would put it to market, right? Like they would market it, get it really good, and then it was my job to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would sell it to TJ Maxx, sell it to Zulily, Groupon, Living Social.
Got it.
At that time, the flashlights were really hot. So, and just watching that company grow from what it was, and it was a startup for him too, because I think when I started with him, it was right at the infancy stages. So I got to watch the process
Mm.
of a small office, bigger office, and the process that it went through as the years went by. And I think in the mixture of that, we would bring in some, we have some liquidators and stuff like that that would bring different types of supplements like Garcinia gambogia or raspberry ketones and different things like that were kind of hot when like Dr. Oz would talk about it
Mm.
or so.
Yeah.
So we would capitalize on those. And so I started really, and then I was going through my own physical transformation
Mm-hmm.
journey. And so I started taking supplements and learning more and more about being healthier and stuff like that. So through that process, I think I genuinely just started really loving the supplement industry. And that's how it kind of leaned into, I got to learn about this industry if I want to
Mm-hmm.
get into this industry. And then that's the kind of like how the transition went from DJing, producing, sales, and
Uh-huh.
learning from
Mm-hmm.
an entrepreneur that's been built businesses, sold businesses, and how he did it, and then to transition into wanting to do my own thing.
That's awesome, man. You hit on a couple points that really resonate with me. Learning from people who are the experts or the
Mm.
go-to person in that realm. It's such good advice. And another piece of advice that I would give young entrepreneurs or people who are thinking of, what do I want to do with my life? I would say either do what you did, go work for someone, or if you have an idea, just start a business. It doesn't
Mm.
necessarily have to be
Mm.
profitable. It can be a failure, but within that failure, you're going to learn so much, about marketing, about sales, about if you're,
Yeah.
inventory. Shit is going to go wrong when you run a business. Those stresses that you encounter are such valuable lessons that if you're 19, 20, 21, 22, I would say just start a business whatever you're passionate about, because you're not going to be able to learn that in school. It's just impossible. It's just theoretical versus applying it. So
Yeah,
it's very good advice.
I 100% agree. And I think, and this is kind of like, I guess I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but basically what happens is essentially the smarter you are, it typically is harder for you to start a business.
Hmm.
It's crazy to say that, but it really is, because you're typically pretty analytical,
Hmm.
and you try to assess what could potentially go wrong, and you just don't jump in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not the smartest guy in the world,
Hmm.
right? But for me, what I learned from, from dealing with different entrepreneurs, that throughout my time, I've dealt with a ton of different entrepreneurs, is what I've learned is they are smart, but they're not analytical. They're not the
Hmm.
ones that sit there and, say risk. So for example, you got someone that's an engineer, right? They're trying to work for NASA or something. You can't have risks, right? You got to be 100%. So as soon as there's some risk involved, you know, they don't want to take the plunge. So to
Hmm.
me, there's a I think to be an entrepreneur, you also have to be, willing to say, you know what, let's see what happens.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And get thrown in. And,
Absolutely.
and so, I've had lots of failures, even with this small tree. Like, I'll give you a quick example. Like, we ended up, it was really, there was this makeup cleaning product that you put on your hand, brush it off. And it was just such a cool idea. And we're like, man, we should jump on this. And we ordered a ton. And I think it was maybe over $100,000 worth of
Hmm.
pullover makeup cleaners that will go over your hand and you clean the makeup. So they landed, and then we ended up finding out that there was a patent on it.
Oh
And so we weren't able to sell it in the US. So what do you got to do now? Like, you can't sell it, can't do anything, can't put it on Groupon. And so all of a sudden, there goes $100,000. Now you got to try to figure out another international account to sell it to. Just those are, the hurdles you hit, that you watch how it's handled, and then you move on, right?
no.
And a lot
Absolutely.
of people, when they get to that level, when you take a risk like that, that's going to break your company. I mean, I've had risks when we started our business. And I know, again, I'm jumping to it, but basically, like, we ended up I came up, and I'm an idea guy, right? So I come up with ideas, and what I've learned is I come up with ideas and I do it,
Hmm.
right? So, and and sometimes it works really in my favor, and sometimes it works against me. So, like, when the CBD craze was coming, I'm like, nobody's doing powdered CBD and in
Hmm.
focus and sleep products and stuff like that. So we went full throttle, man. Went, found a manufacturer that's willing to work with us, made the product, and we're like, dude, this is going to be insane. And got these elaborate designs and everything to go into different types of areas with it, including like all these crazy retailers, and everybody was interested. We make it, go first round, sell out. We're like, yes, this is going to be it, man. So then we do another round of just ridiculous amount of orders, $30,000 worth of this flavor, thirty
Yeah.
thousand dollars for this flavor. And we're putting all our stuff in that basket. And all of a sudden, boom, law hits, no edibles in powdered forms.
Oh my God.
Manufacturer hits us up. We can't make this anymore. And all of a sudden we got, you know, hundreds upon hundreds of cases of these things that now, your startup investment that you're putting into this thing just destroyed
Oh my
overnight.
gosh.
And then now, we got Vegas calls us, all the stuff in all their stores, they got to pull it out because the state is not allowing it. And you got all these other rules and regulations with CBD now hits. And all of a sudden, as an entrepreneur, as someone that's risking his own money, right? All of a
Yeah.
sudden, it just deflates you, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I know we had something, and it was so well thought out, so well designed, but it happens.
Yeah.
And you just go back to the drawing board, and you redraw everything out, and you go out again, and you just try to do it. And that's, I think, that the main difference of, sometimes you need to just do it and then see what happens. And I feel like a lot of times with people that are just really analytical and really understand risks, and then they sit there and assess things, and then they would have maybe seen the future on that before I did, and they don't take the risk.
Hmm.
But then the difference is, what if that didn't happen?
Right.
Right. What
Right.
if that didn't
Yeah.
happen? What if that law didn't all of a sudden pop up, and all of a sudden they try to put all these restrictions? we would have been one of the companies that were the first to market with that. And I feel like we would have probably been, a company that would have been worth a lot of money, doing a lot of revenue. And I think the
Absolutely.
idea was really good. So that's a failed business for us that we did at that time. But
Hmm.
that's, again, it goes back to that thing. It's if you're young, and I don't think there's ever a better time uh, to be able to do your own business than it is now, because it's so easy with all
Yeah.
the opportunities that you have, that you could start an LLC, you could start an S corp, all this stuff, and go on YouTube. I learned 90% of my anything
Hmm.
that I've done. I'm a bio major, so for me, I don't know any business, right? So
Hmm.
any business that I learned was from YouTube,
Hmm.
So I call it
Hmm.
Google University, right? So everything I ever learned was through YouTube. So I just go on YouTube, search people, look at what they say, look at what they do, and that's kind of helped me. And being where I am today is I just constantly I'm in reading.
Hmm.
I'm not very good at reading, so I do Audible.
Hmm.
So a lot of Audible,
Hmm.
and then also just a lot of YouTube,
Hmm.
searching for
Same.
things on YouTube at night. I don't have, like, people say, "Hey, when was it? What show did you watch? What this?" Like, I get it. I have some stuff I watch with my wife, but most of the time I'm on YouTube just searching, like, "Hey, how do you do this?" or "How do you do this?" or "What's the best way to go about this?" And then also I watch a lot of Raiders stuff, but aside from that,
Right.
that's essentially what I do. But yeah,
Uh,
that's how I kind of learned everything.
you and me both. I'm on YouTube all day just trying to learn different things. For me, it's fighting. Yours is the Raiders. Mine is like
Yeah.
fight stuff and then learning stuff on YouTube. But
Yeah.
you really brought out a couple points that I want to push home. I was an engineering major. I was surrounded by analytical people. My father was an engineer. I worked for him. I wanted to be an engineer, or so I
Yeah.
thought. And I just wasn't happy. And I had this yearning to take that risk, to do something that would
Mm,
make me happy. And being an entrepreneur, although technically I'm a financial advisor, I'm still running a business. I'm still trying to go out and get clients. I've got multiple
mm,
other businesses. The entrepreneur in me I'm glad it's there, because I would not have been happy in that
mm.
engineering life. A good money,
Yeah.
good pay, stable, but I would have been miserable. And taking risks is an absolute must in business. The risk that you
Yeah.
took, maybe an analytical person wouldn't have taken them,
Mm,
but they wouldn't have been successful. I'll give you a story. I had another gentleman on my podcast. Um, his name's Shahab Elmi. He started a massive company, and I asked him, what made you so successful? His company's valued at a few $100 million, and he said, well, I definitely got lucky, but I took some risks. And he was telling me a story where before he started this company, he was a big executive for T-Mobile stores. So he would start, I think, at 100 or a couple hundred T-Mobile stores. And in order to scale the business, he took massive risks. And he said payroll runs would come and we would look at our bank account, we'd have maybe $3 in that bank account. But it's those type of risks that has led to his success now. Had he been a little bit more conservative, he wouldn't have had the type of growth. Now, all that to say is, don't just go out there blindly and take risks. You have to calculate those risks,
mm.
but the risk must be taken. And I'm glad that you took it. And I just hope that anyone watching understands that there's no reward without that risk.
Yeah. I think the best thing is, you know, you're sitting on a toilet and you come up with an idea,
Mhm.
right? And to implement it and say, you know what, I think this is a really good idea.
Mhm.
Let's do this.
Mhm.
The process from A to B in that is where I think 90% of people fail.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that is the biggest thing. And I think obviously money issues and different types of things always play into that. But I feel like going from A to B is the idea, and to implement that idea to make it come to life. That's the beauty. And that, to me, that's my favorite part of business.
Absolutely.
Because, we're sitting, and I'll give you an example. I was sitting, I go, I remember, because we're doing these, I'm in the supplement industry, and I'm getting, we have stores and all this other stuff. And I'm looking at everybody's got all these crazy things. I'm like, and we were sitting, I remember, with my wife, I said, pandas. Everybody loves pandas. You know what I mean? I'm like, who
Yeah.
doesn't love pandas? I'm like, what are we just do a supplement, company for stores and stuff like that, and do pandas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was within maybe 2 weeks, I mocked up some stuff
Oh
and came
wow.
up with some ideas for it. And that's how the business started. Right. And you know what? A lot of people in the beginning, like I never forget, we had a manager at one of my stores, and I said, man, I think we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to make this. And I never forget, he came up to us, and I remember it like it was yesterday. He goes, this is the stupidest idea ever. And I'm very blunt with my
Yeah.
guys. Like, my guys aren't like the people that work, I say they work with me, right? So
Sure.
they're very open, and we're very open. So he's like, this is stupid. He's like, you think a guy is gonna come in here, shredded, and he's trying to get, protein or things, and I'm gonna send him a chubby panda on a bottle or something. And I remember that, like, listen, I go, and I looked at him, I go, you think so, huh? He goes, yeah. I said, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you
Nice.
wrong.
Nice.
And the funny thing is, there was a bunch of hurdles like that, right? People,
Hmm.
and then there was some people that were like, I don't know if this, and so you're going to get a lot of doubters. You're going
For
to get a lot of
sure.
people that be like, that's not going to work, and stuff like that. And you're going to get a lot of people that are going to support and be like, man, this is but I think from A to B, the idea, and then implementing it. And then at that point, once it's implemented, you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to say no, and that's stupid, and it's not going to work. And for you to go through that process to get it to a point where it comes to fruition, and then it's a successful company. It's insane, but it's probably the closest thing I could say to making a track in your bedroom, and then all of a sudden hearing it at EDC on the radio. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Yes.
it's just like that, because then all of a sudden you make this thing, you come up with the concept, you flourish, you put it out, and all of a sudden you see a guy in Russia or a guy in Mexico using your product and talking about how it's the best thing in the world and this and that. And you're like, man, I came up with that idea on the toilet. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
that's
Like,
so
in your head,
cool.
like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it kind of comes in that same facet. It's like,
Hmm.
dude, if you rewind back time, it was just an idea.
It,
And then
it,
it's like, then to go there. And you know what? Maybe wouldn't have worked. We did need a little luck here and there, of
of
course, but
course.
maybe, it wouldn't have worked. So I think that's essentially where we're at,
Hmm.
is come up with the idea, but just implement it. If you implement it, you might fail or you might succeed.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
failure, a lot of times, are the chances of failing is a lot higher than the chances, success. But God, it feels good when it
Oh yeah.
hits. So
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I want to dissect the business, the Panda supplement business, a little bit. So, when did you start it?
it's tricky. It's a tricky situation. I'll explain why. We
Okay.
ended up, the way I got into the supplement industry, I wanted to learn the supplement industry, right? So what's the best way to learn something? Is you got to work in it, right?
Hmm.
So I started doing research and stuff, found this company called NutriShop, and they were selling a bunch of stores, and it was available for sale. They did good amount of revenue. I felt like it wasn't done. Some of the stores had really good potential.
Hmm.
I ended up finding a couple of locations out in Arizona,
Hmm.
one being in Tempe, which is really where I wanted to be. And one of the guys that was really big in NutriShop at the time, he had, I think, like 15 locations, and he was going to sell me his Arizona location. So I ended
Hmm.
up buying his locations out here from him, and moving out here and started working in the supplement industry. So I literally, like, came in. I remember I bought Tempe, came into Tempe, store. We kind of let go of everybody that was there, first, and then I literally I worked the store 7 days a week myself,
Oh wow.
for like the first maybe 3 to 4 months. The store used to generate, maybe $18,000 a month.
Okay.
And within a 6 month to one, I think within 6 months, we're doing about 50K a month. And within
Oh
a year, we're
wow.
doing about $70,000 a month in sales.
Wow.
So we hired people, put them in the right positions, started marketing the store, and it flourished. It did really well. But we, in the clause of what we signed and everything that we started the business, I didn't know how much we were being held back as far as, what we could bring in, what we couldn't bring in. When I went into the first NutriShop, in Aliso Viejo, believe it or not. They had like the lady, had all sorts of stuff she was selling in there. So I'm like, oh, these guys are very like, you have a store, you're able to bring in a bunch of things. And I remember she had like dog food or something. It's like, some natural dog food in her nutrition store. I'm like, oh, this is nutrition for dog. Yeah,
Sure.
cool. So, but what happened is, as we started succeeding and doing really well, we also started bringing in, a lot of different products, and it wasn't approved by NutriShop. So, essentially, what we decided to do was, to part ways with NutriShop and start bringing in our own supplements. So, that's how the transition began of going away
I
from
see.
that, and then that. So that kind of put us in a position where, and the crazy part is, the person I bought the stores from, uh, him and I became best friends.
Oh, okay.
So through that process, we ended up running the stores together. And when he saw that the transition that happened, because he couldn't believe it, he told me the story. He's like, this one is a dud. And now the store is doing, better than most of his stores.
Yeah,
So
4x
he,
almost, right?
yeah. So we ended up uh, going through this process. Then he gave, sold me his other stores, and then him and I just became best friends, really good friends. And then when I wanted to do the idea of starting our own supplement lines, uh, he helped me with it. So we ended up doing it together, and till today he's my business partner, and he's one of my best friends. So that's essentially how that transition happened. Was I learned the industry, I learned what people wanted by working the ground floor,
Mm.
especially the students that would come. 70,000 students at ASU that would come. Um, we would see them. We're right next to a gym. So we would essentially, I learned a lot through that process of like what people wanted,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And NutriShop has some amazing products too. So no pun, like they had some really good products, and I really enjoyed using it, and then also getting to learn. And then I would meet all these owners of different supplement companies that were doing stuff, and so the idea was to you know, do something that's more fun and it's for
Yeah.
everybody. And it's,
Yeah.
so we're like, we should just do this for us. So we ended up parting ways with NutriShop. We changed our supplement store names, and then essentially we started making our own supplements. And that process was come up with the idea, formulate it, and then go to manufacturers to see who can manufacture it for you. And at that time, it was a crazy process because nobody wants to work with the two guys that have this idea of
Yeah.
like, and then they want to run 200 units or
Yeah.
300 units of product. So so that's how it really started. And we
Hmm.
started traveling and going to different manufacturers, meeting different people in the process. Just met a lot of great people,
Hmm.
and started with a couple products, and then the next couple products to 10 products, 15 products, and more and more and more, until essentially when COVID hit, our it was right when we launched.
Hmm.
so
Got it.
so we launched our product right into COVID. And so we actually, 2020, right? Yeah, 2020 is when we launched Panda, and it was right in the heart of COVID. So the stores weren't doing well. Essentially, we ended up selling some of the stores, and then closing some of the stores just because they made us shut down in
Hmm.
some certain areas. And then, if you can't go to the gym, you're not gonna,
Yeah.
so and then so in the heart of that work. But the beauty of it was I was able to be home and come up with all these cool ideas and
Yeah.
formulations and concepts, and that's how it launched.
Got it.
And that was when it began.
What a cool story, man.
Yeah.
Um, Couple questions for you. You bought that store, that NutriShop store, 18,000 to within a few months, 75,000. What were some of the key steps that you took, other than getting rid of kind of the dead weight that you did, to increase revenue so fast?
Um, so to be honest, when we took over, we saw the potential there, right? But it's nobody, and I'll tell you this, like everybody has this dream, and this is a good one to kind of say. Everybody has this dream that they're gonna get on their own, they're gonna start working, and they're gonna leave a 9 to 5, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be so easy.
No
And
way.
the difference is the exact opposite. You're gonna leave a 9 to 5, and you're gonna work 5 to 9.
Yeah.
That's essentially what happened, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest turnaround for us was Tom, the owner of that store, who's my best friend. He lived in California, and he's running stores in Arizona. nobody's going to care about your store like you do. The store
Yeah.
was dirty. I walked in the first time, the guy had his foot on the table,
Oh,
watching TV, so like, help, so we kind of, we made the place bright, put a bunch of products in, cleaned the place up, painted it, just made the place look amazing. And then we started just going out in the community, man, just through Instagram, social media. We started reaching out to people that would tag themselves at the gym,
okay.
having them come in, offering gift certificates, offering shakers and samples. And then we would set up at ASU all the time. So
Oh,
we'd
okay.
literally take a table, set up there and start marketing to students,
Nice.
and then having them come in. We also invested in an in-body system, which is, I think at the time we paid like 5-6 grand for. Uh, but we started doing free in-body analysis. So anybody that would come to the store, they would get on this machine and it would break everything down for them, from their skeletal muscle mass, body fat percentage.
Mm,
And what student wouldn't want to know that,
for
that's
sure.
working out, especially for free.
For
And then
sure.
with that, we started, implementing that for everybody as a free thing. We started holding transformation challenges and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, like I remember when we would launch those things in like a single weekend, we'd do like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'd launch, we would do $10,000 to $15,000 in
Oh,
sales just in
wow.
3 days. And then we started also going to like Orange Theories,
Hmm.
F45.
Hmm.
F45 wasn't around at that time yet, but Orange Theories, different gyms will set up, give out samples, give
Got it.
hydration sticks and stuff like that. And essentially just getting out there and bringing people in. And that's what it took.
Yeah.
And I think within, was definitely not a couple of months, but it was crazy because we do like, $300 a day and $500 a day and $600 a day. And then like with this, because we're hitting thousand over 1,000, and then it was like, wow, we're doing 1,500 now. It's
Yeah.
2,000 a day. It's like
Yeah.
2,500 a day, and so and then bringing all sorts of new cool things in that people wanted. So we'd always stay up to date with what's the latest and greatest, and we'd kind
Hmm.
of bring that in. So like I remember at that time, we were one of the first places to bring in Bang energy drinks.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
at the
No,
time, they were like, there was not, there wasn't all this like craze. It was
yeah.
like there's Red Bull,
And
Monster, and that's pretty much it. And like,
right.
and so it wasn't this energy drink craze. And I think Bang was out in Florida. We're the first one to have them in Arizona, and that like catapulted us because we're the first store to have it out there. There was people that would travel, like the guy would come from Tucson to buy a couple of cases of Bangs or
Yeah.
something, but
Yeah.
we let people know. So just latest and the greatest, keeping up with the times, offering things that nobody else would, and then just giving great customer service,
I love it,
and
man.
I think that kind of catapulted us into being able to generate, like I think within a year we're doing in the $60s and $70,000.
Nice.
And we
Wow.
weren't even we were in a crazy market because there was literally a nutrition store across the street from us. There was a nutrition store 2 blocks down to GNC, and then right across the ASU, there was a couple of nutrition stores too. So we had to really work hard
Hmm.
to do that, and then obviously we had to do better pricing and all that stuff too. So all that kind of went into the factor of trying to
Got it.
um, take us to the next level in that
Sweet.
aspect. Yeah.
Because I help business owners for my day job try to buy and sell businesses, I'm very fascinated by the terms and how you kind of got involved in the purchasing and the selling. Do you mind sharing just how the deals were put together, the term structures? Did you get financing? I know this is kind of
Mhm.
boring to most people, but I'm fascinated
Yeah.
by it.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So the structure, I bought the business cash at the time.
Hmm.
So we were able to put up the money for it
Hmm.
outright.
Okay.
Obviously based on savings or whatever
Hmm.
you had to be able to do that. And then and so at the time we paid a pretty penny for it
Hmm.
because supplement stores were kind of really hot at the time, as opposed
Hmm.
to later on it kind of wasn't.
Can I ask
Uh,
what the multiples are generally in that business? Like if do you know what the top line revenue was, and then
so nutrition business is a little bit different, right?
mhm,
Because you're essentially, what you're doing is there's a bunch of people eating, right? So manufacturer makes the product, right, and the manufacturer sells it to the company
mhm,
that makes the product. So manufacturer makes a product for that brand, and then now that brand has two options of sales: either sells it to the store owner, which at a
okay,
50% margin,
Okay.
So, and then, or sells it direct to consumer. So we call it B2B and D2C, or sells
Okay.
it direct to consumer, which typically is about 60 to 70% margin. So that's
Okay.
online. So we're kind of stuck in this area, which is we would have to buy it from with a 50% margin wholesale. So like an example, let's say a product cost um, for the company $10.
Okay.
So that manufacturer is probably making 30% to make that product for that company, right?
Okay.
Manufacturers don't really and then now that company that gets it from the manufacturer at $10 sells it to us at 20 to 23 after
Okay.
labels and branding. And then now that company that now I have that product at, let's say, $23 to $25. Now I'm selling it to the consumer that walks in my store about $45 to $50.
Okay.
So 50% margin. Um, so now, your profitability at a store is really dependent on what you can purchase the product from that brand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and then that brand now can take that product and also sell it direct to consumer at 50
Mm.
on their website, through bodybuilding.com, through
Sure.
Amazon or whatever so you're also competing now with that, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
they're not, a store is not providing, the map pricing is so important, right? Because you want, when you buy that product, to have that, that 50% margin, right? At least 40 minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially that's what you would do as a business. So,
Mm-hmm.
so with that said, so if a store, you own a store, obviously you have certain set costs, right? So your insurance, your rent, all that stuff, and then essentially when you bring that product in, that 50% margin is supposed to take care of all that.
I got it.
And then depending on how big your store is, that's the amount of money that you would need to have inventory. So let's say if you have
Okay.
a GNC. GNCs are typically pretty small. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah.
So essentially a GNC, as far as a single store, if I had to guesstimate it, like they have about 30 to $35,000 inventory, which is not much,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then you go to some of these bigger stores that you see in the country, that are supplement stores that are huge. Some of them carry $250,000 to $500,000 inventory. So that also is the bottom of how much revenue you kind of generate, because if you're holding $35,000 in inventory and doing 70 grand in sales a month, you're turning over.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot easier for a store to do, let's say, $200,000 a month in sales if they're carrying $250,000 to $500,000
Of
inventory. So
course.
all
Yeah.
that comes into play. So you can start a small nutrition shop and have really low overhead, get some good products in there, and start it with literally next to nothing, just some
Mm.
shelves, rent, get it in a small town somewhere where your only competition is a GNC or a vitamin shop, put your name on it, start hitting the your gyms in the area, and work with the high school, and
Mm-hmm.
and you could do well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I could tell you right now, like, if I could go back in time, like, I mean, it's such an easy way to start because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take much.
Right.
You could start with, $10 to $15,000 in inventory. It doesn't take much to get started. And it's a really good niche market to
Mm-hmm.
do that. It's just, you know, uh,
Not a lot of revenue.
it's not a lot of revenue, but at the same time, if you're working it yourself, or
Yeah.
you're standing in there and you're working, and you're in a place where you're paying $800 rent,
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 rent, or something like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, you could do well.
You do well, right?
We
It
can
makes
run a house.
sense.
You could do. There's so many owner operators out there that own nutrition stores, have done it for 20, 30 years, and bought a house and have a good
Okay.
living. And then I just think it's tougher when you're not an owner operator and you want to
Mm.
have, a ton of these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
Yeah.
feasible, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah.
Both of us moved out of California, and I'm curious as to how you're liking it. And you probably moved way earlier than I did, but we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
There's a mass exodus, as you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Tell me about, how are you liking Arizona?
You know, I love Southern California.
Hmm.
I love Southern. I grew up there. All my family's friends, everybody's there. But I feel like at that time, the most important thing for me was um, trying to start a life. and Southern California is next to impossible.
Yeah.
Especially like I lived in like downtown LA, and it was, you know, it was just tough traffic, smog, um, and it was just no place to
Yeah.
get married and raise a family,
Right.
essentially. So you know, and the cost of living is high and all that. So we, you know, and then the opportunity to buy these stores for me was in Arizona. So the idea was we're gonna come, uh, you know, turn around these stores and then sell them, and then essentially come back home. That was kind of the
That was the
idea.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So we rented a place and then moved out here, and then lived here for 6 months. And within 6 months, and my fiance at the time and I, who's my wife now, we loved it. It was just
Hmm.
it was small commutes, really good people, quality, not very expensive, and just we fell in love with the state, man. Just
Hmm.
so much to do outdoors.
Hmm.
People are so nice. We became friends with all our neighbors and stuff like that. It
Hmm.
was sad to see it, but we ended up buying a house, and we decided, you know, sell what we had in Cali, move here, and call it a day full time. So, she sold our apartment,
Hmm.
and we ended up just making this place home. And we
Nice.
wanted to expand out here too, so we ended up with you know with other locations that we ended up taking over out here. So essentially, Arizona is now home, and we absolutely love it. We absolutely love it.
Do you see yourself ever going back, or you're going to settle in Arizona?
I don't, man, and it's kind of sad because, you know, my family's gonna get mad when they hear this,
We'll cut it out for
but you
you.
know, my cousin, but they, you know, essentially, like, I guess the best way to put it is, once you get used to this type of lifestyle, going there, it's like it's insanity.
Yeah.
You know, we go visit once in a while, and you know, I feel like my heart rate goes up every
Yeah.
time I'm driving. I can't, you know, we go visit my sister. I can't find parking. You know,
Yeah.
I got to park like 2 blocks away. You know, everything is small. People are rude.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of instances, like they just don't. You know, and you know, don't get me wrong. Like when I say that, I'm not taking a thing out and saying like everybody is rude. Not everybody's rude. It's just the over there things move at 100 speed. You know what I mean? Like it's 100 times faster than the way things move out here. So, you know, the guy's trying to get to an appointment, he's driving, he's angry, he wants to get there. It's not his fault. If I was in this position, I'll be rude too. You know, I'll
Yeah.
honk and give you a finger. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just doesn't work like that here.
Yeah.
Everybody is kind of looking at working at their own speed. And the beauty of it is, in California, everybody is a go-getter because you got to make it, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot to me when coming out here. I notice everybody's very laid back
Yeah.
in mortgage and real estate. Everybody's just very chill. Um, so like I'm like, man, if someone comes out here and is savage, they could take
Yeah.
over any industry
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
That they do it. So essentially, you know, I understood because I had some friends that are dentists and stuff like that out here that came out here for school, and they
Hmm.
all ended up staying out here. I'm
Hmm.
like, why are you saying? He goes, dude, once you're out here, you fall in love with it. You never want to go back. And essentially, that's what happened with us. We fell in love with it here. We love the people. Everybody's so nice. They take care of us. And actually, my business partner, he lived in Chino Hills.
Hmm.
Crazy enough, he lived in Chino Hills all his life, Southern California. So he sold this house. He moved out here too. So we live 10 minutes apart from here. We literally both
Nice.
of us are 10 minutes from our warehouse slash office area. So come I come to work. We, you know, hang out, and then we call it work, right? Like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
hang out and do work, and it's just so much easier out here, man,
Yeah.
for everything,
That's
man.
awesome, man. Believe it or not, I have a lot of history with Arizona. Most of my family lives there. I go out there often. They live in Chandler. My late
Nice.
grandfather used to live in forgot the name of it, but all around Phoenix, Scottsdale. I lived in Mesa for 3 years when I was super
Nice.
young.
Nice.
What city do you live in, by the way?
So when we moved to Phoenix, and then we moved to Gilbert. Now we're in Mesa. We're in
Okay,
East Mesa. Yeah,
very
yeah.
nice.
So we love it out here, man. I was able to persuade my mom and dad. So we
Nice.
brought them out here, and we actually live 4 doors down from each other. So
No
that's the
way.
other. Yeah, yeah. So they literally are like they so that's the also the awesome aspect of it was that too, is like I get to, be so close to my parents. So I mean, what
Mhm.
else do you want, right? So it's
That's
like,
all.
so yeah, and it's just so easy. And my dad, like, it's my office. My dad's office is right next door.
No
So he
way.
comes to work with me daily too. Yeah.
That's
And he's
awesome.
retired. So he gets to come and helps us out with stuff. And I get to hang out with him
That's
on a daily
amazing, man.
basis.
That's
Imagine
amazing.
going through life like every day your dad leaves in the morning, comes home at night. You barely see him. You see him on the weekends.
Yeah,
And I get to see him every day,
that's amazing.
literally every
So
day, unless
so
he goes to
beautiful.
visit my sister or something. But
Yeah,
I get to hang out with them on a daily basis. We have
yeah.
breakfast, lunch together and dinners. They come over and see the kids, or the kids go over there. And now my kids literally like can walk over to my,
That's
parents. Oh, we're
beautiful,
gonna go
man.
over to my parents' house. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Or all of a sudden I'm looking outside, my dad is in my backyard fixing something. It's like, or so it's just, yeah, this is probably the best time of my life right
That's
now.
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
What a story. We are very similar. We're in Colorado now. My wife got a job opportunity and she wanted to go back to work after being a stay-at-home mom. So we moved out here. And very similar to you, she had a 3-year contract or 2-year with a third year option. So we were going to say, let's give it 2 to 3 years and then save some money, go back to California. That was the original plan. But just like you, we fell in love with Colorado. A lot of outdoor activities, very nice people, get a lot more bang for your buck. But unlike you, my parents are still there. And that's the one thing
Mhm.
that I struggle with. They don't get to see their grandkids as often as they'd like. I don't
Mhm.
think my kids are seeing their grandparents as often I'd like them to be seeing them. So the friends and family thing is really tough. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you're similar to me. When you have a wife
Mhm.
and kids, you don't have time to go out and make new friends. It's like, I don't have time to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So I'm being a very social person on the weekends. I would have liked to have some sort of activity with other people out here. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I would say is kind of a bummer, but I
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen. We'll have to see. Maybe I can
Yeah.
convince my parents to move out here like you did.
It's also, I think, like everything is different, for every family, so
Hmm.
I don't know how, I don't know how successful your parents are, but like
Hmm.
for my parents, like, my dad, would get up at 5:30, take a drive down to Tustin train station, get on the train, go to downtown LA, take a bus to work, and then take a bus back to the train, back to
Wow.
Tustin. So he would leave at like, 5:30, 6 o'clock and come home at 8, 5 days a week. And
Yeah.
so, for him, and then on top of that, to pay the bills and all that stuff, you know, for them it was hard. So it's
Yeah.
like they didn't have the luxury to be like he could retire and just stay in California.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
So, and also the fact that he didn't want to he wouldn't have retired, because to him, if he retired, he couldn't live.
Yeah.
So essentially that, on so for us, it wasn't necessarily the aspect of, coming out here and having a life for us, but also it was the fact, like, my parents, we were able to kind of force my dad into retirement,
Hmm.
and then have him come out here, and now be able to, like, just enjoy, you know, life before he gets too old to really,
Sure. Of
to
course.
enjoy it. So I think it's a little bit different for everybody's family, but they're really happy that they made that decision. In the beginning, I know it was tough because my mom has all her friends there, my dad had all his friends
Yeah.
there, but now they've made new friends here, and
Mhm.
essentially, like, my dad hangs out with me 24/7 anyway. So
Nice.
it's like,
Nice.
so for him, it's like, but my mom was able to make some friends here and hang out with people here. So for us, it's good. And then they also have a little place in near my sister now, so they can actually go and hang out there for a couple weeks and be with my sister and then come back. But, like, my sister living in Marina Del Rey, it's hard for them because it's just that, everything there is just crowded and busy, so for them to be able to go back and visit and come back and just be chilling, and then go back to the hustle and bustle and come
Yeah.
back and be chilling, it's working for them. So
Nice.
I think that's essentially, like, why it works for our family, as opposed to maybe
Beautiful.
other people that are all set.
Beautiful. What a beautiful story, man. I love it. Um, Going back to Panda, what
Yeah.
are your plans over the next few years? Is it to scale this business and just see where it goes, or do you have a exit plan? What are your plans for the business?
You know what? You know, Panda is kind of like our baby. You know,
Hmm.
we especially my wife, because she obviously, co-founded the company with
Hmm.
me, and she's a big part of the company as well, right? So she does all the labels and stuff like that, and then my other best friend, he does all the artwork and stuff like that. So essentially, it's really, I've known Burton, who does all the artwork. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've seen some of the stuff.
Yeah,
I've known
it's
him since
super
sixth
cool.
grade. Yeah, I've known him since he's been my best friend since sixth grade,
Wow.
and we grew up together, and so for him, he's part of it. So just, my wife is a part of it. My best friend Tom is a part of it. We got a little community. So to me, it's like, you know, I love this. This is the,
Yeah.
the best thing. And we do stuff on the side. We have other companies that we do stuff with, and but to me, it's like, I'm not the best person to necessarily say, hey, I want to scale this and do
Hmm.
this, all this, because I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a very good CEO.
Hmm.
you know, I'm just an idea guy
Yeah.
that and I love communicating with people and talking to people,
Hmm.
and honestly, man, it's really who you know, right? So being
Yeah.
able to be in this industry and meeting a ton of awesome people, man, and learning from a ton of other CEOs. So to answer your question, like, I think it's our baby. It's not like we're going to scale it, build it up, and sell it or something like that. That's definitely not in the
Hmm.
plans. Essentially, it's to keep it small, keep
Hmm.
it and grow it,
Hmm.
um, but do it right. We're not the best way to put it, but we're not whoring out the products. We're
Yeah.
not trying to. We're not. We get hit up by a ton of people on a daily basis that want to take our product and put it on Amazon.
Hmm.
If we wanted to, like, we could just let everybody sell it,
Yeah.
and we're very particular with people who sell it. We try to
Hmm.
protect map pricing,
Hmm.
and try to help, because coming as a store owner, that the people that carry our products, I want to make sure that they get their 50% margin, right?
Yeah.
50% margin. So we don't, now I don't want price wars out there, me just selling my product to everybody. Now they're got to fight with people, this guy's selling what they're supposed to sell $50. Now they're selling it for 35, right?
Hmm.
Um, so we try to do that. So we want to grow, but slow growth is not a bad thing. And we did a slow growth, but I think, like, in the last year, it's been insane for us, and
Beautiful.
we just grown exponentially, but we're still keeping it small. It's just a handful of us. I think last time we counted, we're about 10 to 12 people.
Hmm.
Um, and we want to kind of keep it that way.
Got it.
Uh, and, um, and just keep it in the family, and
Nice.
so people can feel it. We do a lot of stuff that's different than a lot of people. And we want people to really feel important, and when they
Hmm.
take our products, to feel like they're getting, they're spending their hard-earned money, so they're
Hmm.
getting something that's very unique. So we do some unique things to do that, and make people feel special, I feel. And and so, yeah, we're growing fast, but we also could be growing a lot faster if we were just to say, here, everybody take the product, and this international person, that international person, hire 4 or 5 people that are just going to do those things. We're kind of keeping it a little bit closer to the heart to make the right decisions for the company moving forward. And I know it's not uh, the entrepreneur in me, the business side of it. I know it's not the best thing to be like, yeah, you don't want to grow too fast and this and
Right.
that,
Right.
but I feel like they're the heart and soul of the company is where it's at right now. It's the way we like it,
Beautiful.
and it's doing really well. Knock on wood.
Hmm.
And I never imagined we would be where we are today.
Beautiful.
And so it's doing really well. And I know not gonna have a choice in 2 to 3 years if we're gonna keep growing the way we
Hmm.
are,
Hmm.
but as long as we can keep it the way it is right now, is what we're gonna try to do.
Sweet, man. Last question for you. This this one really hits close to home. Tony Ferguson. Tony
Yeah,
Ferguson was an ambassador of your guys's, and
yeah,
I have a close connection because Tony Ferguson's striking
yeah,
coach was my,
yeah,
I don't know, he was just a guy who would train me, on the
yeah,
side.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and he would tell me some interesting stories about Tony Ferguson. So I'm just curious how that relationship came about and how was it working with him?
You know, I can't lie. In these type of situations, it's tough, right? Because we work with so many different people. We started an ambassador program, an athlete program where we have thousands of athletes and ambassadors that join. We had a mutual connection through my buddy Sean,
Hmm.
and he put us in contact with a ton of different fighters and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So we were able to send him stuff for them to use, and he ended up having a liking of the products and
Hmm.
using it, and he was great for us. He was great for us. But I personally never
Hmm.
really met him or
Hmm.
communicated with him in that aspect. We have someone that runs our ambassador program, so essentially that communication would have been there. And I know
Got
he
it.
has a code that he generates revenue, but we don't have like a personal
I see.
relationship.
Okay.
But with that said, there's a ton of different ambassadors of athletes. Our industry is kind of weird, man. Our industry is really influencer driven. So if you have someone big, you can kill it.
Yeah.
That's essentially what happens. And a lot of times these influencers that come on board, now they could be anybody. Like it could be and I think getting a little static. Anything. What's it called? You can really do well if you get a good influencer. Someone that's big, got 4 or 5,
Yeah.
10 million followers and stuff like that. And what happens is essentially in order to get someone like that, you got to kind of give them a piece of the company.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
For them to come on board. We went the opposite for Panda. Like we literally, like when we were signing ambassadors and stuff like that, we said, I don't care how many followers you have. I don't care how fit you are.
Hmm.
As long as if you got a 6-pack or a 1-pack, it doesn't matter. As long as you're a good human and you like the products and you have a genuine affinity for Panda, you could be a part of our
I love it.
ambassadorship program. So we concentrate on the micro influencers as opposed to the big guys. And essentially that's how we got to where we are today if
Got
it
it.
wasn't for all those people. So we kind of worked it. Now in the midst of those, we did meet some bigger people and
Hmm.
stuff like that just love the brand, that want to do it. But we don't give that influencer any different treatment than we do our micro influencers. They all are in the same boat for us,
Got it.
because that person is just as that person that sells $200 a month worth of Panda, and this person that sells 10, obviously they get different amount of
Sure.
money, but I don't think one person should be ever more important than the other just
Yeah.
because of their thing. So we push that with our company to make sure that person feels just as important. So we write personalized notes. We
Hmm.
thank them for what they do, and every time they order, they get like stickers and thankful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what the people that box things say thank them for what they do, and they get exclusive access to things, just like everybody else.
Hmm.
So that's the beauty of it. So to us, we're not really trying to get the big athlete guys and stuff like that to pay them, but there's people that like the product and they push it for us, and it's not like we ask them to.
Got it. Got
You
it.
know what I mean? So, and that's the beauty of it. And
Hmm.
I think that's kind of says a lot about the guys that work here in the company, and and kind of like our focus is a little bit different than maybe other
Got it.
companies in the
Got
industry.
it. Very cool. Yeah, I have a funny Tony Ferguson story. I'll tell you off
Yeah,
air.
tell me.
I'll tell you off air, but that's why I was
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
curious as to how that relationship came about. But
Yeah, yeah. And we get stuff sent to us all the time, like opportunities to try to work with different companies or different athletes and stuff like that. I mean, everybody wants to get sponsored, right?
yeah,
It's money,
yeah,
but we just for us, we feel like if that ever happens, it has to be like the perfect person for
sure.
it. You know what I mean? And that relationship is there. But we haven't really gone that route yet at all.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Very cool.
Yeah.
Mehrbod John, always a pleasure. Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
man.
being on the
Appreciate it.
podcast. I hope the
Thanks, man.
audience takes value. You know, you said a lot of really important things of what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, the ups, the downs. So whoever's listening, if you're thinking of starting a business, if you want to take that risk, do it. And if you don't want to take that risk, by all means, a 9 to 5 isn't the end of the world either. There's
Yeah.
there's plenty of beautiful lives that are created from that. So with
Yeah.
that, thank you so much. The next time I'm in Arizona, which will likely be in the next 6 months, let's go grab a bite. Love to meet
Oh,
your
for
wife and
sure, man.
kids, and we'll get
Definitely.
together.
Let's do the same. Thanks so much for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll see you on the next one,
All
my
right,
friend.
buddy. All
Take
right.
care.
Corbunet.